He was the man who united all under heaven, the first to forge a single empire from 1,000 warring states. A ruler whose very name, Qin Shi Huang, meant the first emperor. His armies crushed kingdoms that had stood for centuries. His will carved mountains, moved rivers, and built walls that scarred the earth. He believed he had achieved what no mortal ever had, the mandate of heaven itself. And yet, when the drums of war fell silent, another sound began to rise. The ticking of time. In the quiet of his golden palace, he felt it. The slow decay of the flesh, the whisper of mortality that no sword could silence. Every emperor before him had bowed to death, but he refused. Why should heaven grant me the world, he asked, only to take it away? If men could conquer nations, could they not also conquer eternity? That question became his curse, for in his victory, he had discovered the one enemy that could never kneel, death itself. And so began the final conquest of Qin Shi Huang, not of lands or peoples, but of time itself. The dream of death. That night, Qin Shi Huang dreamed. He stood on the edge of a black sea, endless, silent, and cold. From beneath the waves, shadows rose, the faces of kings long dead, the ghosts of those he had conquered.
You will never be free of us.
Your reign is over.
We are your eternal torment.
You have united the earth, they whispered, but you cannot unite heaven. Then, from the horizon, a massive serpent coiled toward him, its scales like armor, its eyes burning like stars.
What was that?
The serpent opened its jaws, and the emperor awoke screaming. The court astrologers spoke in hushed tones. They told him the serpent was an omen, a sign that his time was ending, that heaven had sent death to claim its debt, but the emperor refused to believe. If heaven has written my fate, he said, then I will rewrite it myself. From that moment, sleep became his enemy, and eternity his obsession. He summoned alchemists from every corner of the empire, magicians, mystics, men who claimed to turn mercury into immortality. Gold melted in their furnaces, pearls ground into powder, jade steeped in wine, all in search of the elixir that would make a god of a man. But each night, the dream returned, the serpent waiting, patient, eternal. And with every sunrise, Qin Shi Huang grew more desperate. He built hidden chambers to store his treasures, ordered mountains carved into tombs, and sent his messengers across the seas to the lands of the immortals. The first emperor had conquered every kingdom but one. Now he set his gaze upon the only realm left to rule, the realm beyond death. But heaven had already made its decision. In 210 BC, while traveling through the plains of eastern China, the first emperor fell ill. He could no longer speak, his breath slowed, his pulse faint. He was still clutching a vial of liquid mercury, his final elixir. Within days, the man who sought to live forever was gone. His death was kept secret. No one dared to announce it, for fear the empire would collapse. His body was placed in a carriage, surrounded by carts of rotting fish to mask the smell. The procession marched back to the capital in silence, as if time itself were holding its breath. Behind them, the empire he had built began to crumble. Rebellions rose, ministers plotted. The search for immortality had ended, but so had the dynasty that dreamed it. And yet, perhaps, Qin Shi Huang did find a kind of immortality after all. Not in the body, but in stone, in legend, in the whisper of every ruler who came after. For even now, over 2,000 years later, we still speak his name. He did not defeat death, but he defied heaven. And in that defiance, he became eternal. The Emperor's obsession. The Emperor summoned the alchemists, the mystics, the astrologers.
We must continue to expand our empire.
He demanded from them what no man had ever found, the secret of eternal life. They spoke of a place far to the east, beyond the horizon where the sun is born. There, they said, lie the Isles of the Immortals, where the sage Penglai reigns and the elixir of life glows like starlight on the waves.
This dreadful news will shake the very foundations of our kingdom.
The Emperor listened, his eyes burning with both wonder and fear. He rose from his throne and declared, "If the elixir exists, bring it to me, even if you must walk beyond the edge of the world." And so began the journey beyond the map. Ships were built from the finest timber in the empire. Thousands of young men and women were chosen, scholars, artisans, soldiers, and dreamers. They carried jade vessels, golden seals, and offerings to the gods of the sea. The Emperor himself watched from the shore as the ships vanished into the mist. The wind howled across the waves, and for a moment, he felt something he had not known in years: doubt. Was he sending them toward paradise or oblivion? Days turned to months. The ocean gave no answer. No ship returned. Yet the Emperor refused to believe they were lost. In his heart, he imagined them reaching that fabled shore, walking among the immortal sages, holding the shining cup that would grant him endless life. But in the silence of the palace, as he stared eastward from his lonely throne, a truth began to whisper, that some journeys are not meant to end, and some dreams are meant only to consume the dreamer. Journey to the eastern seas. They called it the greatest fleet ever to sail from the Middle Kingdom. 3,000 souls chosen by decree of heaven's son.
This one here.
That's a new discovery.
Truly remarkable.
Scholars who could read the stars. Physicians who swore they could brew life from herbs and mercury.
O ancient spirits, hear our plea.
Soldiers sworn to guard the sacred mission, and young boys and girls, trembling, silent, chosen as offerings to the gods of the sea. They carried jade bowls, gold ingots, silk banners bearing the dragon's crest, and a single command from their emperor: bring me the elixir of life. When the tide rose, drums thundered across the coast. The ships pushed forward into the mist, their sails like white wings gliding toward eternity. For days, they saw nothing but the endless blue. The horizon itself seemed to bend away from them, as if the world refused to reveal its edge. Then came the storm. The sea darkened, turning black as ink. Lightning tore the sky open, and waves rose higher than palace walls. Men screamed prayers to gods they did not know. Women clutched jade amulets until their hands bled. And in that chaos, they saw it, a shadow beneath the waves, vast and alive. A creature like a mountain, scales glimmering like molten bronze, its eyes staring back with an ancient calm.
Behold, the ancient terror awakes.
They called it the guardian of immortality. Some swore it spoke, its voice a tremor through the storm. Do mortals deserve eternity? When dawn came, half the fleet was gone. The survivors drifted in silence, their sails torn, their hopes scattered like ashes. They spoke of islands that appeared and vanished, of shores lined with silver trees, of voices calling their names from beneath the sea. Weeks turned into months. Salt crusted their lips, hunger hollowed their faces. Yet still they sailed east, chasing mirages, chasing myths. One night, as the moon sank into the ocean, the admiral wrote in his journal, "We no longer seek the elixir for the emperor. We seek it for ourselves, so that this suffering might mean something." No one knows how far they reached, nor what they found beyond the horizon. But when the wind carried whispers back to the mainland, the emperor was told that his fleet had never returned. Still, he refused to believe. He told his court, "They have crossed into the realm of the immortals, and one day they shall return, with eternity itself." And so the legend spread, of ships swallowed by the sea, of an emperor defying death, and of the ocean that spoke like a god. The island of the immortals. One night, after months lost upon a nameless sea, the horizon began to glow. At first they thought it was dawn, but the light was too golden, too alive. Through the fog rose an island, drifting as if untethered from the earth. Its sands shimmered like powdered jade, and its trees glowed with veins of fire.
The island of the immortals.
immortals.
From the distance, the sailors wept. They had found it, the island of the immortals. The fleet anchored in silence. When they stepped ashore, the air itself felt ancient. No wind, no birds, only stillness, as though time had stopped to watch them. Then they saw the inhabitants, figures pale as morning mist, their eyes hollow yet shining faintly, their bodies untouched by age. They moved without sound, and when they smiled, it was not joy, but memory. One approached the admiral, her lips parted, but no words came out. Only a sigh, like the echo of 1,000 forgotten names.
What is happening?
I do not know.
Days passed, or maybe moments. Time had no meaning there. The crew felt their thoughts grow dim, their memories thinning like smoke. Some began to laugh softly to themselves, as if they had lived too long to remember why. Among them was a scholar named Lu Sheng, the emperor's most devoted alchemist.
The path to enlightenment is often paved with shadows.
He watched the silent immortals drifting among the trees and finally whispered, "They did not conquer death. They were conquered by it." As his voice faded, the wind rose for the first time in centuries. The immortals turned their faces to the sea, and one by one, they dissolved, their bodies scattering into dust and light, their voices lingering like a hymn. To live forever is to forget what life means.
Oh, no, no!
The sailors trembled. Some fell to their knees, praying. Others ran back to the ships, begging to return home. But the emperor, his robes soaked with sea spray, his eyes burning with madness, walked into the waves. He scooped the golden water into his hands, lifted it to his lips, and drank. "This," he whispered, "is the elixir of life."
This is the elixir of life.
The sky turned silent. The island began to fade. And when the fog swallowed everything, no one could tell where the sea ended and the heavens began. The return. The deathless emperor. When the fleet returned, the emperor stood upon the shores of China, his armor still gleaming with salt and time. He did not speak of what he saw, only that he had drunk the waters of eternity. From that day, he believed himself deathless. He commanded his court to record his triumph. He ordered temples to be built for the immortals. And every morning, he swallowed a drop of shining silver liquid, the elixir of life his alchemists had distilled from mercury and jade. At first, he felt powerful. His voice thundered in the halls, his eyes burned with the light of conquest. But soon, something changed. His hands grew cold, his breath shallow. At night, he could no longer sleep. He wandered the palace corridors like a ghost, his reflection flickering in bronze mirrors. A face pale, lips darkened, veins like rivers of shadow beneath the skin. In his dreams, he walked through a desert of white sand. Every step turned the world around him to stone. The trees, the birds, even the sky froze in silence. And from the horizon, a voice whispered, "You have conquered the world, but lost the right to leave it."
What is this place?
His physicians trembled before him. They dared to speak only once.
Majesty.
"It was mercury, my lord,
The omens
the poison
are
of
dark."
heaven." The emperor said nothing. He simply stared into the distance, where the sun bled into the mountains, and the land itself seemed to mourn. In seeking to escape death, the voice of the earth sighed, he became its servant. The tomb beneath the mountain. In the final years of his reign, the emperor turned his gaze inward, not toward the stars, but toward the earth beneath his feet. He summoned tens of thousands of laborers, artists, architects, and slaves, men who would never again see the light of day. Beneath Mount Li, they carved a kingdom of shadows. They shaped mountains from stone, rivers from liquid mercury that shimmered like molten moons, and ceilings inlaid with jewels to mimic the constellations of heaven.
Continue the digging. Failure is not an option.
The emperor's command was clear. Build me the world as it should be, not as it is. Every brick bore the mark of his reign. Every chamber echoed with his name. When the tomb was near completion, he descended into its heart, where a bronze sarcophagus awaited, surrounded by a silent army molded from the earth itself. Thousands of clay soldiers stood in perfect ranks, their eyes unblinking, their faces frozen with eternal vigilance. It was said they carried the spirits of real men, that each warrior was a soul he refused to release.
Remember me not by my reign, but by the peace I sought.
As the last torch flickered, the Emperor stood before the sealed gate and whispered, "If the elixir fails me, the earth itself shall remember me." The great stone door closed with a sound like thunder. Darkness swallowed the chamber whole. Outside, the workers who knew the secret were buried alive, their screams muffled by layers of soil and silence. And thus, the deathless Emperor vanished, entombed in his own reflection, beneath rivers of mercury that still flow like the blood of gods, deep within the mountain that guards his dream of eternity. Centuries passed, dynasties rose and fell. Yet beneath Mount Li, the first emperor still sleeps, wrapped in silence, guarded by an army that has never drawn breath. They say rivers of mercury still flow through his tomb, reflecting a sky no living man can see. And if you listen closely in the stillness of night, you might hear the faint echo of footsteps, the march of clay soldiers, still awaiting their master's command. Qin Shi Huang sought to defeat time. He built walls that touched the horizon, and monuments meant to last forever. But in the end, it was not the elixir that made him immortal. It was the story. Because as long as we remember him, as long as his name is spoken, the Emperor lives on, not in body, but in legend. So tell me, was Qin Shi Huang a visionary genius or a mad tyrant chasing eternity? Was he a conqueror of death or merely its most faithful servant? The answer lies somewhere between myth and dust, in the place where ambition becomes destiny,